They probably never wanted to tangle with Picasso because I can definitely see a lot of cantankerous personality traits in his face. First of all, his eyes come out really far and are very round. While in face reading, this is artistic expression, the ability to imagine and have a lot of visuals going on inside the mind. It also belongs to people who can look for problems. It's like they're seeing more than the average person. And because of this, they tend to look for what's underneath everything and jump to conclusions about things and just have a bit of a temper. The shape and size of his nose lets me know that he had a massive ego. And the flatness of his cheeks, they're like almost concave. This belongs to people who are working really hard and they're not filling themselves back up. It's like they're just go, go, go all the time. They are not doing self-care. They're just hyper fixated and focused and obsessed on whatever it is that they're fixated on. Also, people that have this can be a little more cruel at times. It said that they didn't receive the nurturing that they should have received growing up, and as a result can have trouble loving and receiving love. Giving and taking can be an issue for them. Notice how his philtrum is very long and then there's lots of space around his mouth. This in face reading is called a monkey mouth. Not sure why, but it indicates that the person will live a very long life and be very prosperous in their life, that things will just come to them. Life will be easier for them in certain ways than other people. His mouth is pretty thin cut. His upper lip is very thin. So he's not wielding a lot of feminine energy. The upper lip is feminine energy. The bottom lip is masculine, so definitely wielding more masculine energy. The fact that his lips are virtually the same color as the rest of his face shows that he is in a lot of ways detached from emotion, although we can definitely see it come through his artwork. He probably wasn't speaking about his emotions very often. And then just the sharpness of the corners of his mouth let you know that this person is very capable of being very sharp in speech, saying very cutting things. Also, the inner corners of his eyes are very sharp. So definitely words as weapons. Definitely he's going to have the last word, and you don't want to get in a verbal argument with this person. His chin is also very squared off, so no problem with confrontation. Probably would look forward to it. You actually see a squared off chin in a lot of military leaders, police officers will have it. It's interesting. You'll have someone who goes through a police academy. Before they went, round chin, pointed chin. Afterwards, the chin has squared off because they spent all this time learning how to square off, because it's a requirement of the job. It will square off your chin. Also notice the reverse falling lines that come up and under. This is positions of power over and over again. And his falling lines are pretty wide, so popularity. His ears do stick out. You see this in rebellious people whose personalities stick out. And they are very high, indicating that he's just genius, and obviously he was. Lots of deep lines in the forehead, so difficulties in the 20s. I'm too lazy to figure out how to buy this from stock photos, so sorry. He does have a bump on the bridge of his nose, so again, aggression. It's mild, but there all those other features add up to quite a bit of aggression in the personality. Check out these lines when he smiles. They go down his cheeks, but then all the way down, and they connect to that reverse falling line. So this is deep grief that is connected to a position of power. So he's channeling his deep grief through art, which is giving him a platform of personal power. Wild to see that. Also, the lines go into his marriage palace, so he would have been too much charm. There's too much charm in him for just one partner. He would have been a cheater for sure. I see lots of hidden wealth in the angle of his nose, lots of stubbornness in his chin. It sticks out quite far. Oh, definitely an addiction to altered states. I don't know what this meant for him. You can spend a lot of time in kind of like a dream world or a lot of time imagining, and this will create indentations in your temples. But looking at his art, I really have this theory that he did a lot of psychedelics, and I don't know, maybe it's not a theory, maybe he did and I just haven't read about it yet, but that's what I think. Very handsome as a young man. His cheeks were a little bit fuller. He would have been taking better care of himself. in his youth, it looks like. He just have these indentations in the corners of his mouth, which are for secret keeping. People that have them are very good at keeping secrets. This is so interesting to me. Look at his self-portrait and how he unconsciously views himself. He aggrandizes his ego so it is out of this world large by making his nose the most prominent feature on his face. The nose is related to money, power, and ego. So unconsciously, he sees himself as just the most powerful person in the freaking universe. And his eyes are really big, and the eyes are the heart. He sees himself having a more open heart than he actually does at the unconscious level. Also, when he painted this, there would have been stress related to work because he gave himself sanpaku in the right eye. This is where you can see the whites underneath the iris. So whenever he painted this, there was some stress related to business. The right side of the face is related to business. Then he does highlight his cheekbones, which again are personal power. He makes his ears quite big and high, which would be intelligence, really putting your ears really high, and ears are also related to wisdom. Then he narrowed the bottom of his face. It's not this narrow in real life, and made the top part of his face wider, which belong to people that are radicals and scientists of the world. So he views himself as very smart, brainy in his intelligence all the time, much more than he actually was, which I think is so interesting. Gave himself a very wide philtrum, which is a much larger sex drive, which I think is interesting as well. And gave himself quite a smaller chin. So he sees himself as less confrontational than he really was, which again is fascinating. And swoped his forehead, which again is entrepreneurial thinking outside the box, and impatient. So he sees himself as an impatient person as well. Fascinating. We've got ourselves a repressed genius with a massive ego, who channeled all of their emotions and all of their repression through art. The most amazing art. Someone you didn't want to get in an argument with, for sure. Someone very cantankerous, and yet someone who used their grief to create a beautiful position of power for themselves in this world. Really, truly a genius.